Hello, everybody. I think we made it. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Royal Talens Creator Studio Live on YouTube. This is our first show in 2024, so thanks for joining us for our inaugural episode. And we are now on YouTube. And the reason we're doing YouTube is to make it easier for folks to access and find the videos after the live broadcast. We've got all these wonderful videos on Facebook, but it's really hard to kind of navigate through them and find what you're looking for. So now it's going to be much easier just to type in a few words into the search in YouTube and find our broadcasts and be able to enjoy them at your convenience. So if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff Olson. I'm the Art Education Director for Royal Talens North America, and I will be your host. In today's show, we're going to be talking with our ambassadors, Vic Hollins and Kristen Olson Stone. Wennie Huang was also going to be with us, but she is sick today. So she won't be on the live, although she said she is going to be watching and making comments in the feed. All three will be featured in next week's 4th annual Watercolor Live event online. This is a premier event, and it offers participants 3 days of premium instruction in watercolor painting. It's a fabulous program. If you've done it before, you know. If you haven't, definitely look into it. I'll be sharing some information on how to link up to that during the show as well. At the very end, we are going to be giving away 2 free passes to next week's Watercolor Live event. That's a $400 value each. So this is an awesome prize. I'm glad and thankful to Watercolor Live and the folks at Streamline for providing this as a giveaway for our broadcast today. One quick note, though, this giveaway is only being offered during our live broadcast, so it expires at the end of today's show. To be eligible to win, all you need to do is make a comment or ask a question during the show, and then we're going to pick 2 names at random at the end and announce the winners at the end of the show today. So make sure you hang around to the end and find out if you're one of the lucky winners. So a little background today on our guests. So first of all, Winnie. Hi, Winnie. She's at home. Hopefully she's feeling better. Winnie's in Brooklyn. She is an artist who has received her BFA in painting from Pratt Institute and her MFA in printmaking from the University of Michigan. She has over 20 years of experience in art education. She currently teaches at Parsons School of Design, the 92nd Street Y. Hey guys out at the Y, Wave Hill, and the Pastel Society of America, the National Arts Club. Her own work has been exhibited at the Bronx Museum of Arts, Wave Hill, and in various New York City galleries. Next is Vic. Vic is a Tucson-based artist with a unique body of work spanning many different styles and mediums. Her paintings capture the dynamic beauty and vibrant colors of the women, animals, and patterns she paints. She works with a multitude of different materials, layering mixed media techniques. Her illustrations include watercolor, ink, gouache, and colored pencils, and not limited to that, so much more. As a published illustrator, she has captivated audiences through her comic book series Wilder, her self-published card game Meow Mayhem, and many other original illustrations. And finally, Kristen. Kristen has been drawing and painting all her life and loves working in watercolor and ink. She is a classically trained painter. She paints a wide variety of subjects. Recently, she became fascinated by designer interiors and enjoys interpreting these colorful rooms. She has taught numerous workshops, including teaching alongside Robert Bateman at the SKB Foundation in Wyoming. She exhibits internationally and has garnered many awards along the way. Her work hangs in private and public collections worldwide, including the New Zealand Parliament and President Michelle Obama. Her watercolor painting, Brunch in Barcelona, has just won Best Watercolor via Artfinder, London's online international art competition. So everybody, please join me in welcoming our great ambassadors. Let me get them turned in so you can see them. There we go. Awesome. Hey guys, how's it going today?
Hi, hey Jeff, thanks so much for having us.
Thanks so much for being here. And a shout out to Winnie. I hope she's feeling better. So just to let you guys know how we're going to work today's show. First, we're going to have a brief interview. We're kind of collectively going to chat, talk a little bit about where we're at, a little bit about the videos and Watercolor Live, and then just some of our advice about participating in workshops like this. Then I've got a presentation to share where we're going to give you a sneak peek into Watercolor Live to see some of the highlights of the videos that Vic, Kristen, and Winnie have created for the event, and some of the images from the presentation that I'm going to give live at the event as well. At the end, we're going to do Q&A from the comments. We were going to try to do it as we go, but we had another absence. Our moderator threw her back out. Can you believe it? The luck we're having today, but hopefully she's going to be better. So today we don't have a live moderator, which means at the end of our talk, I'm going to go back through the comments and do my best to answer as many of the questions, time permitting. And then, of course, we're going to give away the prize. And what I'm going to do is announce those names, and those folks will need to direct message us on Facebook at Royal Talens NA. That's Royal Talens and the letters NA at the end, and send us a message there, and then we'll give you the information to get connected to join Watercolor Live next week. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go back to my interview questions, chat with everybody. I'm going to go ahead and leave us on the gallery view through this. So the first thing is, where's everybody calling in from today? Vic, where are you at?
I'm in sunny Tucson, Arizona. The sun is shining. It's like 75 degrees, so no complaints over here on my end. How about you, Jeff? Where are you at?
Well, I'm in not sunny Seattle,
Uh,
but it's not snowing and it's not frigid. I think we're actually at 35 degrees. So compared to the other half of the country, that's probably seems pretty warm.
yeah.
How about you, Kristen? Where are you at today? Oh, you're still muted, Kristen, too. Just there we go.
I'm in Palm Desert, which is right next door to Palm Springs, and it's beautiful and sunny here today too.
Well, you guys are killing us. The rest of the country's in an Arctic freeze, and you guys are basking in the sun. We're all jealous.
I always say winter is the payoff.
Yeah.
No, oh, absolutely, absolutely. I know, because in the summertime, you guys are like 115. And in Seattle, we actually see the sun, and it's really beautiful here. So that's our season, the summertime for sure. So a couple questions for you guys, and you can answer these individually. The first is, as accomplished and experienced art educators, what do you guys enjoy most about creating content like the videos you made for Watercolor Live? And I'm going to go ahead and start with you again, Vic.
My favorite thing is just making art knowledge accessible. I love sharing tips and techniques with people. And especially, this is a watercolor event and I love watercolor. I work with so many different mediums, but my main thing is mixed media. So I love giving the idea to people to try different supplies in their art. And it may be something they never even considered before. But I love sharing art knowledge with people. So that's my favorite thing about making videos.
I agree 100%. Accessibility, the internet in general, and then events like we're doing today, and events like Watercolor Live that kind of were born of the pandemic, but now
Yeah.
have become a mainstay, right? It's just so easy for people, no matter where they are, to access this. So I think that's a big part of it too. Kristen, how about you?
I love making videos too. I think there's a whole art form to it, and I like editing them and choosing what I'm going to paint and just making everything look really nice. And I agree with Vicki. It's wonderful to have it be so accessible, and the internet has made that possible, and it's a wonderful venue to teach. And it's fun too. I also have a lot of students who follow me online and also do my live workshops. And so I get to know people, and it's a way that they can continue studying and learning, and I love introducing new materials also.
It is great relationship building, isn't it? I mean, when you go
Yes.
someplace in person, you're there for the day or a couple days if you're doing an extended workshop, and then you take off and you don't
Yeah.
see any of those people. Maybe you connect with one or another as time goes on, but this format really has made it easy to stay connected and build long-term relationships. I really enjoy that aspect of it too. Random question here. I was thinking as you guys were talking, especially the comments you made, Kristen. Do you guys remember the first video that you made?
Yes, unfortunately.
Vic, do you tell us about your first video experience?
I mean, it was just, like when I was younger, I made videos as a kid for fun. But my first art video, just, you learn with every video you make. That's all I'm gonna say. I've made a lot of videos.
Do you remember yours, Kristen?
I do. So I had intended for, I did it was an oil painting video. And I had intended for it to be about an hour, which is long. And it was 3.5 hours. So I had to break it up into 3 parts, and I did everything, full length, and I talked through the whole thing. Now I do it differently. I film myself and then I edit and then I do a voiceover, and it's much nicer and neater and better received. And yeah,
Oh,
my first video was
absolutely.
long, long, long.
The first one I did, I tried to do everything like on the spot. So I would record myself talking and I
Yeah.
screw up. I must have done 50 takes. It was like one of those blooper reels where I kept flubbing it up, stopping and do it over again. But as you said, you kind of learn techniques and you learn the editing process, and it makes it much more enjoyable. Those first ones were, oh my God, it was crazy. It was crazy. One more question before we get into the presentation. And what kind of advice can you give to participants? So this is folks who are going to be potentially attending Watercolor Live next week. What kind of advice can you give them in the event or during the event to help them make the most of an experience like that? So this could apply to workshops in general, right? So Kristen, why don't you go ahead and start? What advice do you have for folks?
To try to do what the instructor is showing is really helpful, because a lot of times people will watch my video or take my workshop, and then they think they've learned enough skills, and then they try it on a completely different subject. But it's really good to try just what the artist is doing, even if it's something that you don't think you want to paint. You'll learn more that way.
It's great advice. Great
Yeah.
advice. And Vic?
I would say, in an event like this where there's so much information, don't try to write everything down. Just kind of try to experience the event. And if something really strikes you, if you like the light bulb goes off and it really resonates with you, write that down and just try to experience, try to paint along. Don't try to worry about learning everything. Just be in the moment. And yeah, those pieces of information that really resonate with you, they're coming to you at the right time. Your skills are aligning, everything's working out. So if you could just hold on to those couple tidbits that really strike you, I think you're going to learn a lot.
Great advice. Great advice, both you guys. Focusing on what the instructor's teaching and then not trying to take a note about every single thing that's said. Just focus on the things that really, really speak to you. I agree 100%. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to ask questions when the opportunity arises, and don't compare yourself to where other folks are at. It's all about you and what you're learning, not how you compare to others. And I think that would be my 2 bits to add to that as well. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and switch the view again to speaker, and I am going to share the presentation. So we've got some great images, like I said, kind of a teaser for Watercolor Live. So give me 1 second to bring that up. Here we go. You're going to see the PowerPoint, and I'm going to enlarge in that. There we go. Everybody see that okay, Vic, Kristen?
Good.
Yes.
Perfect. So the 4th annual Watercolor Live online. So here is the link for folks who aren't aware of this or want to learn more about it. Go ahead and take a screenshot or jot that down. I'll try to put it in the comments after the end of the show too, again, but it's essentially watercolorlive.com, and go ahead and add 2024 to that so you get the right one, because they've been previous years, of course. And then featuring our ambassadors, Vic, Kristen, and Winnie. I've got an image here of the schedule when our videos are going to take place. So for those folks who are participating, I'm going to be giving a live talk on the 23rd at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then Winnie's video is going to air at 5:50 p.m. on Wednesday, the 23rd, and that's Eastern time. All these times are Eastern. Vic's got 2 videos that she did, 2 shorter videos. One is on Ecolina or Ecoline, and that's going to be at 4:20 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, actually it looks. And then Thursday is the Fine Tech video at 7:10 p.m. Eastern. And then finally, Kristen with the Rembrandt watercolors at 12:20 p.m. Eastern. So a great lineup of events. So go ahead and mark those down, folks who are going to be attending. So let's go ahead and get into our sneak peek at the content. So first we've got Vic, and there's Vic's website if you want to look and learn more about her. And she was featuring Ecolina, as the Dutch pronounce it, Ecoline, as we say it here in the US, and Finetech, just a wonderful paint. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to the next slide. And Vic, I'm going to let you take over.
All right. Well, I love the Ecolina. Is that how you pronounce it?
Ecolina.
I've always called it Ecoline, just, just normal, nice and simple, just regular Tucson accent, I guess. But Ecoline is really great. It's a very vibrant, saturated liquid watercolor. And it's dye-based, so it's almost like you're painting with dyes, right? So in my short little video, I'm basically showing you how you can water down these colors, how you can mix them and get those more subdued kind of earthy skin tones from these very vibrant colors. So because they're also very transparent, I'm also showing people how they can mix a little bit of gouache in with them and layer them up with each other. And for the final step of my mixed media heart, we're using a little bit of watercolor pencils, Brunzil, just to refine our edges and put a little bit more detail in there. So it's basically a mixed media demonstration on how to use these fantastic, very liquid watercolors.
So you know what? I'm getting a comment. I think that when you're talking, folks are not seeing the image. So let me go ahead and escape from this
Oh,
real quick and make sure that I'm spotlighting.
it looks good to me, Jeff.
Okay, are you guys seeing it okay? All of a sudden now I don't see Zoom, but there it is. Oh, there we go. So it looks good to you. All right, so I'm going to open that back up then. All right, so let's go to the next image then. There we go.
All right, let me see here. Oh, okay. So we're on to the fine tech. I see a couple questions asking about the Ecoline. Do you want me to answer those or do you want me to move ahead?
Let's go ahead and move ahead, and we'll do our best to come back around just so we can stay within the time frame.
Sounds good. All right, so the fine tech are basically metallic watercolors, and I'm going to be showing people how to paint on both black and white paper using these very vibrant, opaque, pearlescent paints. There's also a smaller collection inside the set that's iridescent. And the hardest part about painting with metallics is clarity. So I'm going to be giving you lots of tips on how to make a clear image on both black and white paper.
I love how this looks, especially the pans. They actually are really showing really well in the image, especially the iridescent colors there. These colors are so fantastic. And I love the swatches that you created too.
Thanks. Yeah, these paints are so much fun. I love working with these. They literally dance on the page as you're painting with them. It's a whole experience to paint with these metallics.
What do you think is the takeaway for fine tech for folks or for the Ecoline? What do you hope folks take away from the video?
Well, for the Ecoline, I just want people to see how much you can do with them. I think that people look at them and they think, oh, they're very saturated colors. It looks like printer ink, basically. And you can mix them and get so many different colors and such a large range out of them. They're just so versatile. So I hope people can take that away from the Ecoline. And then for the fine tech, I just want people to be able to see the differences of painting on both black and white paper.
Yeah, there's a big difference, and I think people get the black paper. It's so intense, the contrast, but I love that you did this on the white paper and really see how subtle they can be when mixed with traditional colors. So I think that was really brilliant of you.
Yeah, because when you're painting on the white paper with watercolors, you're using the white of the paper for the highlight, but when you're painting on black paper, you're using the black paper for the shadow. So it's completely opposite, and they both come out really cool. So
Yeah, super cool. These are all great images.
thank you.
All right, Kristen. So Kristen is using the Rembrandt, which is our professional choice, literally one of the very first products Royal Talens manufactured back in 1899. Actually, I think the watercolor was 1901 is when it first appears in the catalog. So it's one of our premier lines, and Kristen did a wonderful demo using it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Kristen. So tell us what we're seeing.
So you can see my ink drawing that I did with, I have a really wonderful refillable ink pen. And I did the drawing first in pencil, and then I erased it and did this ink drawing. And I love this style. I love to have a nice clean line drawing and make the line a part of my painting. And I'm just getting ready to start mixing colors. And you can see I have a big palette of paints. And I love these paints. They're just the best. They're just wonderful to work with. The colors really glow. And I'm painting this on Rembrandt paper too, the 100% cotton Rembrandt 300 GSM paper, and it's fabulous to work with. I love that. And it's a nice, bright paper. It has a knot surface, which is somewhere between hot press and cold press. And you can see that it really holds a nice line. So I'm starting with just with one of the flowers in this clip.
Now we're
So
getting the color on there. Yeah, that just wonderful color with these paints. Huh?
yeah, I talk a lot about color in this video and explain how I layer colors and why I choose the colors that I choose. I talk about warm and cool hues and transparent and opaque colors and why they're both important. And then I of course go through my process. People always say, "Where do you start?" And how do you know when you're finished? And so I talk about where to start and how to decide where to start. And so anyway, this is about, I think, halfway through the painting, it looks like.
Yeah, a couple of things jump on me. First of all the paints that you have in here, because so this is not how this is sold, folks. This is Kristen's customized set. She's filled it up with all sorts of colors. I'm amazed at how many pans you can get in this metal case. These are great sets, but really versatile, and you're showing it off right here. And I even love your blotting on the paper towel. The colors there are so fun.
I made this set. I've been experimenting with the Rembrandt tube paints, and I have the sets of half pans as well, but I've been experimenting with the tube paints and just honed down my colors to this set, which is 37 colors that I fit. So this case is sold as a 24 pan case, but you can squeeze in 2 more. And so you could make it 26 pans. And then if you put some more half pans facing the other direction down the center, you can squeeze in 37.
That's fantastic. I love that.
So those are my favorite colors, and I love them. It's a collection that I put together based on wanting to have a balance of warm and cool hues and opaque and transparent colors. And so I use a lot of colors in this painting right out of the tube. So a lot of people, have limited palettes and they focus a lot on mixing colors and mixing everything. And you can do that, but you can get a whole different effect by using colors straight out of the tube and layering them instead. And so if you have a lot of colors to choose from, it's easy to paint that way.
Yeah, there's no limited palette is not in Kristen's vocabulary.
I have the maximalist palette.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. But you integrate them so well. And this demo piece is a perfect example of that. You integrate all these colors and you get such wonderful nuances if you sit and really look at it. I think super fun. I really have been enjoying your recent work. So it's super fun to see.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, so Winnie is not here, and if she's watching, hopefully she'll make any corrections on any errors I make about her piece. But she did send me some prepared comments, so I'm going to go ahead and read from that. The first slide here, you can see the colors she's working with. So she's using the Van Gogh palette. So she has the pan set here that she's showing off in this image, but you can see in her other palette, she's got this real nice porcelain palette where she squeezed out some of the Van Gogh tube watercolors. So she's kind of going back and forth depending on what she's trying to achieve. So I'm going to go into this first image. I'm going to go ahead and read from Winnie's comment. So what she's doing here is dark to light, thicker to thinner. So it's kind of a unique approach, right? So here are her comments. Usually in watercolor, the technique that is most demonstrated is painting light to dark, wetter to drier. But what I wanted to show is how with watercolor, you can also start with the darks, which allows you to establish shadows and direction of light, saving the white paper for light and medium washes that will be added over, not next to, but over the darks to soften some of their edges that will merge into the wet washes on top. And instead of starting wetter, in this case with the darks, you start thicker and then the thinner washes come later. So you can see how she's layering in the darkest values here first. The method of dark first, then glazing over in colors comes from the old master painting method called grisaille, which is literally gray for the grayscale underpainting over the top of which thin glazes of watercolor would be painted. So this method is actually more European. In fact, this darker first method in ink wash is considered an English approach originating from pen and ink drawings that would have then had wash added later after the drawing. I've looked at a lot of these. Sandby is an artist you can look at for that. Some of those early English watercolorists from the 18th century who kind of revolutionized that technique. The method is taught a lot now. The lighter to darker, thinner to thicker actually comes from the Asian brush painting, and that's something I didn't know, where the grandfather washes are laid down first and are the most diluted, eventually leading up to the darker and denser and drier brush strokes, which are the freshest, or what they call grandson strokes. It's fun terminology. Full of vitality, and this is because of in sumi brush painting, the sumi stone is dissolved and the resulting wash will get darker as the water evaporates. The point is you mix all you need in the first go, and as a Zen practice, you then make the entire painting using the ink and water, painting from more diluted washes and more concentrated strokes as the wash evaporates on the mixing block. So some fun information there. She also mentions that she's using the Van Gogh paper, and that she's painting on it because it's a cellulose, not cotton. So it's a different effect than what you see in Kristen's. So it's less absorbent and it makes it a lot easier to lift. And also, if you paint with enough water and pigment, encourages the gradation effects that you can see in some of her brush strokes here. You can get anytime you use a mixture of pigments. So you can also see your reference image down here below. So that's fun. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Winnie, for sharing that ahead of time. And hopefully she's on the chat correcting any error that I made.
She is. She's on the chat. She's letting everybody know that she's
Oh,
on the chat.
fantastic.
She's answering questions like a true pro.
She is a trooper, under the weather and still on board. I love it. Last but not least, I'm going to be speaking at Watercolor Live. Mine is actually going to be a live talk. It's a presentation. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the history of watercolor, the composition of watercolor. So this is general, applies to all of the lines that you see here. Then I'll get into the working properties, and that's where I'm going to make some distinctions, and I'll show you some quick previews. So here's the presentation itself, watercolor radiant veil. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about comparing the working properties first of watercolor versus ink. I get so many questions about what are the differences between the two. They actually share so much historically as well as their application. We're going to talk a little bit about the absorbency, adhesion, permeability, color mixing, mixed media techniques, and then general cleanup comparing watercolor and inks. And then I'm also going to do a comparison between watercolor and gouache. Again, two mediums closely related historically. Essentially, gouache was referred to as opaque watercolor painting all the way up until the 18th century in France. Again, comparing the difference in absorbency in the paint film, color mixing, opacity, of course. Why is gouache opaque? We'll talk about bleeding and staining, mixed media techniques, dry time and finish, all the things that are the same and those things that differentiate the two. So it should be a really good talk for folks who are not only interested in watercolor, but also interested in these other water media that are such close companions to watercolor itself. And that is it for the PowerPoint. So I'm going to stop the share here. And now is going to be our opportunity to answer some questions. All right, so I'm going to go back to the gallery view here so you can see us all. And then Vic, I think you've got eyes on this, right?
I do, but Wenny really has been having our back. She's been
Oh,
answering
there she is.
that have been popping up. So I don't know. I don't know if there's too many. We just have a bunch of people saying how beautiful your presentations always are. So
Oh,
pat
thank you
yourself on the back.
guys. We've got great comments. I'm seeing it for the first time now. I'm kind of jumping into it. Oh, thank you everybody for being with us today. This is fantastic. So Vic, you're looking at some of them. You see a couple questions for you there. Feel free to jump on, and I'll look for some of the ones for you, Kristen.
For Kristen, people were asking if the pigments you use, or if the watercolors are single pigmented that you use.
Single pigmented, you mean straight out of the tube and not mixed with another color? I
Um,
guess.
yeah, or if the color just has one pigment inside the tube.
Um, I think so. I mean,
I can answer that. I can
yeah,
answer
what's
that.
single
Yeah,
pigmented?
so some of the colors that Kristen's using, like ultramarine, for example, are monopigmented, but the rest of the colors are mixtures of different pigments. So if you were to look at the back of your tube of watercolor, there's a little number there. It begins with a P and then has something like a Y or an R for pigment yellow or pigment red. If you look at that, it's the color index number, and there's just one number there, like PB29, then it's a monopigmented color. If you see multiple pigments listed of different colors, then you're working with a mixture. And I'm guessing, because I don't know every color that's in Kristen's palette there, but I'm guessing there's a mixture of monopigmented as well as mixed pigmented tubes and pans.
Thank you for answering that. That one stumped me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to pull out that
No,
one.
no.
No, thank
Somebody's
you.
probably asking what's the advantage of monopigmented colors. And so when you're mixing colors, it's called a subtractive color process. So each each additional pigment that you add takes us closer to black. So monopigmented colors allow you for more mixtures as you're going along. If the color already has 3 or 4 pigments in it, you can only mix that so many more times before you start to get to a tertiary color or a black. So the benefit of working, say, with a limited palette, where maybe you only had 6 colors, if those are monopigmented, it's going to give you a lot more mixtures or potential for cleaner mixtures as you're going. Great question. What else we got on there?
We have a couple other questions. Winnie's been helping us out though. She's
I
answered
see
most
her,
of
yeah.
them. We had some people asking about the difference between Amsterdam acrylic ink and Ecoline. And Ecoline is just going to be water soluble. It's dye-based, so it's not going to be waterproof when dry. You can work back into it. But it's also going to fade over time because it's dye-based. That's what makes it so saturated and colorful. Trying to see what
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I can jump in on the technical side more. So Echolina or Ecoline is a true watercolor. It's a gum Arabic binder, just like traditional watercolors. Like Vic said, it's dye-based, so it's going to have all the working properties of watercolor that you would expect. And it's permeable. The gum Arabic binder means that after it's dry, you're able to re-wet it and reactivate it. The Amsterdam inks are an acrylic binder, an acrylic polymer emulsion used for the binder. Think of it as a super fluid, highly pigmented acrylic paint. You can do all traditional ink techniques with it. You could even airbrush with it. Lots of fun applications. It's water mixable and water soluble also, so you can thin it out with water and add water to it. You can use it with other water media. One of the main differences, though, is when it's dry, it's permanent. It's impermeable. So once the acrylic dries, you're not going to be able to lift it or reactivate it. So that's probably the most significant difference. The other really significant difference is Ecolina or Ecoline, like we said, is dye-based, which means it's not fade-proof. It will fade over time. The Amsterdam inks, with the exception of the fluorescent colors, so the majority of the line is pigmented and light fast. So you're working with colors that are archival. So those would be the biggest differences between the two.
And then we also had a question if you can layer or combine Ecoline watercolors with Finetech, and I don't see why not, because Finetech also have a gum Arabic binder, so those should be very compatible, but just remember those Ecoline are going to fade a little bit, so maybe it would be something that you would scan or just playing around in your sketchbook like or something like that, but those Finetech will stay how they look once they dry, and those Ecoline will not.
Yes, absolutely true. Finetech's a professional grade paint, pigmented, archival, light fast colors. The Ecolina are not. There is an advantage to Ecolina though, for folks. The colors, because they're dye-based, so it's saturated colors, you get great mixtures, great transparencies. But if you're reproducing the work to post on social media or for print, it reproduces much better. It just reflects more light, more color, because of the dispersion of the coloring agent within it. So it's really brilliant and intense color. So it's really fun to work with. It's just not going to be there 10, 20 years from now. So if you're creating the piece that you want to last for generations, you want to use the pigmented colors like the Fine Tech or the Rembrandt or the Van Gogh.
And another question for you, Jeff. Looks like people are asking if Royal Talens will ever sell just powder pigments for handmade paints.
I don't know if there is a time when that's going to happen.
Come on, give us the insider information. We want to know. We all came to the chat, so just tell us,
I
Jeff.
know it. I know it. So there has been no consideration for that. It's certainly come up. Artists have commented on it, not just in North America, but other parts of the world as well. But there are no plans to create a line of powdered pigments at this time. So we'll see if that changes. I certainly will be the first to let you know if that comes about. But the professional lines, especially the Rembrandt lines, whether it's watercolor or oil, have such heavy pigment loads in them. I have used them to color other types of mediums, like in caustics, where you're painting with hot wax. I've used Rembrandt oils as the coloring agent for the wax, and there's so much pigment in it that it works wonderfully. So if you're just looking for some color to add to a medium that you're working with, look at the Rembrandt colors. There's lots there to go around when you're using mixed media techniques.
All right, we have a couple more if you're up for answering.
Certainly, we've got time.
I have one for you too, Kristen. Do you stretch your own watercolor paper?
I usually paint on watercolor blocks. And when I'm painting larger paintings, I use heavier paper, like 356 GSM, which doesn't need stretching because it's so thick.
It's the good stuff.
Yeah, I have used, I mean, I have stretched my paper before, but the blocks, you don't need to stretch that paper.
All right. And then people were asking, this will be a good one for you, Jeff, if using a UVLS spray to would that slow down the fading of the colors beneath if someone was to spray that over a finished piece of art with Ecoline, for example?
Sure, sure. Yeah, it would. This is true for all art, even pigmented art. They are all sensitive to light. So light fast colors are going to last, but they still are sensitive to light. So anytime you put some type of varnish that has UV in it or some type of UV fix, you're going to extend the lifetime because it's going to block some of those harmful UV rays. Other things can just be reducing the exposure to light. Don't hang that painting where it's going to get direct sunlight. If you're storing things, storing them in flat files helps too. So they're in the dark and they're not getting the beating from the UV. So there are things you can do to extend those colors, but they will ultimately fade. The fugitive light fast rating for Ecolina is 0 to 10 years. So depending on the color, it isn't like it's going to fade on you next year even. It's something that does have a good lifespan for what it's intended. It's just not what we consider to be archival, which is kind of a subjective term in and of itself. But archival products, typically we're looking at 100+ years under museum-like conditions. So a significant difference between 10 or less.
Absolutely. I think that Ecoline is really great for people that are doing print work that's going to be scanned, fashion designers, that kind of stuff, where you're scanning it and that scanned image is kind of the final.
Yeah.
It's also really fun to play around with in your sketchbook too.
Exactly. It's got a great history. It's actually was introduced by Royal Talens in the 1930s. And it was primarily a tool used by illustrators. Of course, this is before photos dominated print advertising. There was still a lot of illustration work, and it was a great tool for illustrators because they got this vibrant color and it reproduced really well. And that's still true. It's still something that reproduces fantastic. And now that digital assets, illustrations are so important to the way that we communicate today, it can be a really wonderful tool for artists who are doing that kind of work.
Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much it for the questions. I probably missed one or two, so I apologize if I did, but
Well, thankfully, we can go back after the fact and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. This was great, though. I'm really loving the new format. I'm kind of seeing the questions now. Thank you, Vic, for jumping in as
no
our impromptu moderator. And thank you, both of you, Kristen and Vic, for being here today. And thank you, Winnie. She can't talk, but she's doing her best. She's doing great. That's fantastic to see her on the chat. And thank you for your contributions, all of you, to Watercolor Live. Watercolor Live again is going to be starting next week. And before we go, I've got the big announcement. So I put all the names in our little random generator, and I see some familiar names in the winner category. So we've got 2 winners, you guys. Are everybody ready? We got a little drum roll. So I've got Susan Hunter-Gies and Jill Hansen. So Susan Hunter-Gies and Jill Hansen, 2 of our regular viewers. It's so great that you guys won. So you guys are the winners of the free passes to Watercolor Live next week. The way to get the information would be to direct message us on Facebook. So that's Royal Talens NA. And both Susan and Jill are familiar with that. So hopefully you guys will be able to get back to me and we'll get you guys set up to join Watercolor Live next week. That's fantastic. So happy for you.
yay.
Yay.
That's awesome.
And thank you everybody for joining us on our inaugural 2024 show and our first shot at YouTube. I think it went off for the most part pretty well. So I'm optimistic about the future and really excited that everybody's going to be able to go back and access these videos at their convenience anytime. So that's fantastic. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you again, Kristen, Vic, and Winnie at home. And we'll see everybody next time on Creator Studio Live. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.